I think we had a few conversations about this before we finally committed to it.
That is true.
And then you cornered me at some birthday party that we were at.
Yep.
You were like, "Hey man, what about the podcast? Are we doing this thing?"
Is that how bacon sounds?
Especially when I've had a few drinks.
Hey man,
Listen here,
brother.
I've really been thinking about this for a long time.
He was in the zone. He was all about it. And
Yeah.
with your background, I totally get it. I mean, it makes sense. It's like a logical evolution for us.
Coming to you from the Bacon Wave Production Studios in Northern Virginia, this is PODCASTNV. Today, the boys kick off the podcast series with the story behind PODCASTNV, and later in the show, they'll talk about RadioNV, the myths, the legends, and where did those handsome boys come from? Let's kick things off with Brian, Timmy C, and Bacon.
Well, this is fun. This is cool. This is Bacon's brainchild.
Yes. I had an idea, and it brought forth this child, and we shall name him Podcast Envy.
Apparently, this has festered for a little while, huh?
Oh, yeah. Like an ingrown hair. That's a really great image.
Yeah, jeez.
Yeah, thanks for that.
What a start.
Yeah, I've actually had the bug to do radio all my life. When I was in high school, I had a radio show. At my high school, I had a radio station, so I had a radio show. And so every time I came on the air, I was like, hey, you're 91.7 WMPH. You're tuned in to Tuned Out. I'm Mikey B. And then the other guys that were with me would say their names.
Mikey B?
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah.
What else don't we know about you?
This is Mikey B in the morning.
Now, is that name's okay? Mikey B's good?
Mikey B's good, but Mikey without the B is a no-go. Not a fan of that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. It's like we're, Indiana Jones, or maybe Paul Abdul, 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
Perfect.
How much was it scripted, though? Like
None at all. None of it
Okay.
was scripted. Like I would have show outlines that we would follow, and like we would do certain things at certain times, but there was no script. It was just off the top of our head. We played music. We played like all the top artists. We had the ability to play music without having to pay for it because we were on a nonprofit station frequency.
Okay.
So we were allowed to play whatever we wanted as long as it didn't have curse words in it, of course. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Did you ever bring in any guests?
Yeah, we did a Mother's Day special where all of us brought our mothers in.
Nice.
And that didn't really make for good radio, but it was a good idea.
I'm sure they appreciated it.
Yeah, they thought it was cool to be like in the studio because it was like a real profesh studio. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't just like a hole in the wall.
So have you ever done a podcast before?
No, I've never done a podcast, and I kind of wish I had jumped on this idea earlier because I've always had the idea of wanting to put my voice down for people to hear because, I feel like it's a voice that everybody wants to hear.
It is a good voice.
Yeah.
That's
I
not
agree.
true.
Checks out.
I've heard the playbacks. It's not always great.
Have you done a podcast before, B?
No, I haven't.
Really?
I have not. But I have embarrassed myself with recording a million things.
You have.
with my equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the videos, all the songs, whatever. I was going to say, it's funny you mentioned Bacon specifically, that as long as the songs didn't have curse words in them, because I remember distinctly there was a period of time where certain radio stations did play songs with curse words on them. And then that was kind of the big deal that they then came out with the parental advisory
Right.
on the albums.
Yep. I remember that.
Yeah, there were certain radio stations I was not allowed to listen to.
So, Bacon, why are we doing a podcast?
Because I think that, in my humble opinion, when the three of us get together and talk, we have interesting and funny conversations. And, it's just another way to kind of, promote the band, but also, hanging out with you guys and just talking about stuff has always been like a lot of fun. That was one of my favorite parts about practice with us, was like the part where we would sit around and just talk for hours. And I'm like, oh, wait, we should probably practice for a few minutes, right?
Try a new tequila.
Right.
Many tangents. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We should try that one song that we said that we were going to practice tonight.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys know or not, but I was on a podcast a few years ago.
Oh, snap. Were you?
Really?
Yeah.
Is that why you kept asking everybody? Just waiting like, God damn it, somebody asked me.
Nobody asked me. I was actually on a wrestling podcast.
What?
So if you remember way back when we played, there you go. Ric Flair's here.
Let me tell you something, brother.
Oh, Hulk Hogan's here.
They're
Wow.
all your favorites are here.
boy.
I'm here to tell you about the grave
Digger,
That's not
Undertaker,
good.
It's the Undertaker.
Wow.
the Grave Taker.
I had a beer.
That sounds
And I
like
had another beer.
What?
he's got them all down.
I know. Stone Cold.
All right, now go get a ladder and fall off of it.
Not the first time I've been instructed to do that.
Oh,
Cheers.
I didn't mean it.
Well, you said it.
All right,
So
Tell us about that. Sorry.
So we were so we played over at the Old Shebeen.
RadioNV did.
RadioNV did,
Yes.
yep. And the bouncer, or the guy that worked up front, right? We played for Halloween, and turns out he and I had the same wrestling shirt on.
I do remember
that?
this.
Yep, Wrestling Chris.
Mr. Nolan.
That's right, Wrestling
Yes.
Chris. So he and I started a podcast called Geek Out Championship Wrestling.
That's a great name.
Geek Out was kind of his thing, and we would preview pay-per-views, and then we would do kind of the post pay-per-view.
So the
the
pre,
pay-per-view
you're like,
for
here's who's-
WWE would come out once a month, and so
Oh, it was a thing.
It
like
was.
a periodical.
it was so once a month we'd get together
That's
to
a
do
word,
the
like
preview.
Harvard word.
Yeah.
Thank
That was
you.
good. We'd do the preview and do our picks for who we thought would win and who we wanted to win, right? Look, we know it's predetermined. We know it's scripted, right?
So you already knew who it was?
No, we had no idea.
Okay.
But, so we used to have things called,
This is kind of like the NFL with Vegas, right?
I don't know about that.
Oh, okay.
But we used to have things called mark out moments where you would like kind of jump out of your chair. It was cool. It was fun.
That is cool.
Still kind of nerdy, but I loved it and I still love it. I think it's cool. I think
know what?
wrestling's fun.
I have a very strong opinion about that. If something you love, and who cares if other people think it's nerdy? It's cool. If it's cool to you, man.
Yeah. Well, we had our own belt.
Well,
Actually,
that's
we had
a little
multi-
nerdy.
We had multiple belts. But it was fun, and we got to play different characters on the podcast, and each episode was probably about 45 minutes to an hour.
Okay. Was it strictly wrestling? Did you guys ever get into anything else? Did you guys do interviews?
We never. One of his buddies joined at one point, and then that was short lived because he kind of flaked out. But then, no, we didn't really bring in anybody. It was just kind of us talking about wrestling.
Yeah.
And whatever the current happenings around wrestling was.
Yeah.
And then our take on it.
So, as far as like how the three of us know each other and how that story came to be, do you want to cover the Radio NV beginning and then get to the point where you went, bring me into the story? Or
That is part of what I had written down.
okay,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember reading that.
I mean, I remember, yeah, right? Because I sent it to you to proofread.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, the whole thing, as far as I recall, it kind of started when I moved out of the house where I was living. I had just started practicing guitar,
Yeah.
and I was in a townhome.
what year was this?
This was probably 2012, 2013.
2013, yeah.
Okay,
And I had been playing, for a little bit, just tinkering with it, and mentioned it to Tim, and he came over, and I played Maybe,
Yeah.
the Homeless Guy song for you, and he thought it was awesome. And I knew that he had kind of played a little bit with his dad, growing up, and
But
on and
never
off.
guitar. I
Yeah.
never played.
I was going to ask, is this the time where he came to you with a knife and said, "If you don't start playing fucking guitar, I'm going to stab you"?
Brian called
More or
it
less.
He called it more of a baptism by fire.
Yep.
Okay.
He was like, "You need to learn," and I was like, "Okay."
yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure if I remember this correctly, as soon as I saw your enthusiasm for it, I said, "You know what this means?" And you were like, "No, what?" And I was like, "You now need to learn guitar so we can start a band."
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. It took us, I think, close to a year to get our first official gig. I had been doing some stuff with a coworker of mine who had a standing gig over at a place in Reston. And so I kept like subbing in. I'd sing
yeah.
one of my original songs.
Yep.
There were a couple of cover songs that we would harmonize on, but she mostly would play guitar and play piano, and then for my songs I would play guitar. But that's kind of how, and going out to open mics.
Yeah.
That was another thing actually that Tim and I started doing together, especially the place out in Leesburg.
King's Court Tavern.
Yep. we'd go out because they had open mics there, and I remember racing out there because I had to get a babysitter or something.
Yeah.
Or I had to figure out childcare just so that we could go out for like an hour just to practice a song in front of an audience that didn't give a crap about anything.
No.
And then race back home and relieve the babysitter. Of course, it evolved from there. But yeah, we finally got our first gig at the end of 2014.
Yeah, I remember at King's Court, you got up there and played for open mic, and they came over, and you were like, "Oh yeah, so what do you think? Do you think we can get a shot to play?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, but I need to hear the two of you together."
Right.
And so Brian and I looked at each other, we're like, "What do we sing?
Yeah.
Like what should we do?" So we got up there, and I forget what we sang. We did something.
It might have been, it could have been a cover song.
Yeah, I don't
honestly
remember,
don't
but we went up there and did it together, and he was like, "All right, well, you can get the 10 to 2 slot."
Yeah.
We're like, "Oh, not bad. 10 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon." He was
really?
like, no.
Yeah, I didn't know.
10 p.m. to 2 a.m. and we had like maybe 45 minutes worth of material. Like we did not have anything. And again, I couldn't play bar chords. I
Yeah,
could do
that's
some
true.
open chords.
Yeah.
But
That was a hurdle.
Like, just using a pick, like the whole thing. Like I was green. I knew nothing about playing guitar.
Yeah.
So like I had to rely on YouTube. I asked my dad, I was like, "Hey, can you teach me?" He was like, "No." And I was like, "All right."
He doesn't have
And he
time.
was like, "I'll show you 5 chords and then you can figure out the
Figure it
rest."
out, yeah.
Yeah.
And so like first it was learning how to play, then it was learning how to sing and play.
Yeah.
And then it was like, well,
Which
what
is
else
harder.
do I do?
Harder than you think.
And
Oh, yeah.
and that's where the plethora of instruments came in because it was like, oh, well, I could do this or I could do that.
Anything but bar chords.
Yeah.
But talking about that show, having only that much material, it was kind of nice that we got booked for those gigs because there really wasn't anyone there.
No.
So we were playing to the bartenders if they were even paying attention. And so we could kind of recycle some songs to extend the amount of time.
Yeah, yeah.
And of course, we kept playing there and started playing at other places that our catalog started to grow and we had some more options to play with.
But I think our first official show wasn't there.
No, I don't think so
It was
either.
at Old Shabine.
I think it was Old Shabine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
When Stephanie was working there.
So when you set out to learn guitar and play guitar, was your mindset, I'm going to write my own stuff? Or was your mindset, I'm going to practice covers, and if I get to the point where I can play my own stuff, I'll do that?
The only reason why I picked up guitar is because I had songs that I was writing and humming and singing in my head that I didn't know. I didn't have any instrument or any other kind of outlet. And so I grabbed a guitar because actually a good friend of ours, saw him back in high school. She gave me a guitar, and I really didn't do anything with it. I learned G, D, C, just the basic stuff, and just kind of cut it out after like a month or two. So I knew that I could probably pick that up rather than start on an entirely new instrument.
Yeah.
And but that was even when Tim and I started talking about playing gigs, or picking up other opportunities to play, that we didn't want to be known as a cover band. We
Right.
wanted to have our originals to mix in there because we both kept writing.
Yeah.
We have dozens of songs.
We have a lot.
Yeah.
So, probably, I don't want to speak for you, but probably about 40 to 50% are pretty terrible.
The early on, when
stuff
it's
was
all
pretty
just
bad.
open
I
chords.
think,
Not everybody starts at Tom Petty.
right, exactly. But yeah, it was pretty bad. But no, we've come a long way. Anytime I look back, I'm like, wow, we've really come a long freaking way.
Yeah. And then of course we gotta bring you in here. I wrote down dates here to help me remember some stuff.
Well, before we get to that,
Oh yeah.
so when you guys started just picking songs you want to cover, how did you determine that? You guys have pretty similar taste in music, right? You both like Imagine Dragons and
But no, that's more of me. Brian is more on
What
the
was that?
alternative
Invisible
side.
Lizards? Yeah. What was the
Brian's more on the alternative side, and I would be more on the country side. And we come together kind of with some pop, right, and some rock.
Yep.
But that's kind of our blend, right? So I would come with some country stuff.
so you're saying you're a little bit country and Brian's a little bit rock and roll.
Well, kind of, if you want to go that way. Thank you.
Get together like
put it
I'm
plainly.
Donnie, he's Marie.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, pretty much.
for the kids out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Look up Donnie and Marie.
Yeah.
Or don't.
Yeah, or don't.
It's probably sad.
I think the biggest thing was we just would come up with songs that we liked, and whether they were past, present, whatever. And, I would go on YouTube. So YouTube was the best way for me to learn how to play guitar. So I would pick whatever my favorite songs were and just try to learn to play along with the YouTube videos. And then if I felt like I was pretty good at it, I'd say, hey, Brian, what do you think about this song? And he'd be like, that's country. I don't know.
Yeah. It was a tough time for me in country.
Yeah. But, but he and I kind of would just play around with it. Like he said before, like we didn't want to play a ton of cover songs because we didn't want to be the best at doing other people's stuff. Right. We wanted to make our own identity. So even with the cover songs, it's kind of got our own flair to it. And it always has been.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Because it was just the two of us, too.
Yeah.
And until you came along, we had really no percussion other than the tambourine. So
the bongos we broke out. Remember for one headlight.
True.
That's how that started.
Yeah, that
was fun.
We weren't like a band, so for us to do cover songs the way that you might go out to see a band do cover songs, it was never going to be us.
Right.
So it was always our adaptation of the way that we heard it, or the way that it came easy to us, or the way that we liked it.
Yeah, I do remember the first time I went out and saw you guys before I was part of the band. And I did recognize that the way you played your songs was unique compared to the note for note copy of a lot of cover bands. And I don't want to insult anybody by saying that. It just, the way your style was different, and it was something that was appealing to me anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's why we keep getting booked.
Yeah.
Well, and I think we also wanted to be a wide blend, right? So like what might be a song that you might like, the next one somebody else might like, and you're like, it's okay. But like it's a wide blend, so like we're not locked into one category where people are like, oh, they're just a blank band, right? We play everything. We're a wide variety of stuff, and our originals are kind of the same way too. It kind of is a blend of a lot of different genres and stuff. So.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of different styles in our original stuff because they come from different places, and there's so many different influences that we have. Yeah.
True. Yeah.
So we did RadioNV for a solid year.
Yeah. What were some of the other band names that we had?
Oh yeah. Picking the band names. So
that's always a challenge.
I actually might have that on here.
Yeah.
Really?
Well, one of them was
It's
Music
possible.
is the Future.
Yeah.
That sounds familiar.
Another one was Another one was Jukebox of the Future.
Jukebox from the Future, yeah.
That was another one. Maybe it wasn't music. Maybe it was Jukebox of the Future. That rings a bell. Oh shoot, what were some of the other ones? We had a wide variety of stuff.
Yeah, I'll have to pull them up, man. I thought I might have it in my notes, but it's probably in an email.
Well, that's how we used to do things, was email back and forth.
Yeah.
We used to have actually the sheet music too, so we didn't have tablets or anything. So
we would print.
If you caught us on a windy day, it was not a good day.
No,
because we could not keep stuff together.
2012. Did they have iPads and stuff like that back then? I'm trying to think.
We had a budget
because it was.
Yeah,
they were probably
budget.
still relatively new. I think the iPhone came out in 2009, so iPad would have been relatively new and probably still in the several thousands of dollars at the time. So
yeah. What was that first show that you saw us at?
I want to say that it was at Main Street Pub.
Okay.
Yeah,
that sounds about right.
Yeah, and that's kind of how. I mean, connecting Rock Soup to RadioNV made sense. It would have been cool if all of us could have gotten together and done something.
100%.
Well, we did at one point at the old Lion and Bull.
Yeah.
You guys had a gig, and I came up and played.
Yeah.
So that was
shook
the
your tambourine for us.
Yeah, that was the closest we came to doing a mass collaboration.
Was that the one where the guy came up, insisted that he was a harmonica player, and then took his false teeth out and put it on the amp, and then played?
I forgot about that.
I'll never forget that. He smelled like cigarettes.
Yeah.
He couldn't get away from me. He was a close talker.
Yeah.
And came up, and he insisted, and other people vouched for him. So we were like, okay, 'cause
right.
we've done that before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it never works out. This
No.
time it did, except we had the gross, wet teeth on the
I mean,
amplifier.
they were right beyond my hi-hat. So I was just sitting there playing, just looking at the teeth like, this is awful. What are we doing?
That's so terrible. Why do we always run into stuff like that?
I don't know, man.
When he and I first, our first gig at King's Court, like we're on our first break, and it's like, okay, boy, whew, we just got done all of our material. What's next?
Pit stains
Brian's
and
like,
everything.
I was so nervous. And Brian's like, all right, well, let's take a break. And these guys come up that were like locals that would always come to that bar. And they're like, hey, can we play during your intermission? And we're like, okay. Because the one guy went and sat at the piano that was sitting there. And we just figured they were just going to play the piano. And the one guy like grabs my guitar and starts playing. And they start doing like this jam session.
And we thought it was
And
kind
we're
of cool
like,
at first.
okay, yeah, this is
Yeah.
cool. And then like we kept looking at our watches like,
Well, I think we stepped out and then we came back in.
we needed to calm our nerves.
Yeah,
Let's put it that way. It was our
understand.
first show.
But
right?
they were still playing, and
They
our
kept
breaks weren't
playing.
supposed to be that long. And they
Right.
were playing for like 45 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, the same
was-
song?
Wagon
just
wheel on
kept jamming
repeat.
Like it was their show. And like we were like, we don't want to make anybody upset because we're getting paid our $100 for this 4 hours. We got to make it worth our
Rolling in
while.
the dough, yeah.
But I don't know what it is. Like we've had shows where like people come up, they're like, "Can I sing?" And we're like, "We don't know. Can you sing?"
Yeah.
And then they get up and they can't sing. Or one of my big pet peeves, which we could get into at another time.
Can I touch your tambourine?
Yes. That they take the tambourine. They're like, I'm the best tambourine player this side of the Mississippi. And it's like, okay. And then they
seen me
take the
play?
tambourine.
They get up there and they're
it's
just
like,
smacking it around
yeah.
like a cow's tail.
Yeah. I don't know what it is.
It's deceptively difficult to play the tambourine, man. You have to have rhythm. You have
yeah.
to be able to stay on the beat.
and I don't even have that all the time, but you make me sound good because I just look back. I'm like, am I on beat? And you're like, yeah, okay, I'm on. I'm back
I keep
on.
a very fluid tempo.
Right.
It's very elastic.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know what it is. I don't know why.
I think people just want a little piece of the stage,
I guess.
because they know that they can do things to a certain extent, but then it is different when you're in the audience,
Right.
and then now you're looking at the audience.
Right.
It's a little
Yeah.
bit different. People
is.
don't understand that it's a real thing. There's
Yeah.
a shift there.
And Brian and I were used to that being in show choir in high school,
Oh yeah.
So we're used to looking at audiences.
Mr. Roby, are you with me? Oh yeah.
Me and the church ain't going nowhere.
So you guys went to school together,
High school.
Yeah.
high school together. And so was it your high school connection that made you guys decide to play in the band? Or did you just, how did it come about?
This is a deeper conversation of what do you believe in truly?
That's true.
Coincidences, cosmic mishaps.
Higher
Divine
powers.
intervention.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because he and I, after high school, I mean, we were friends in high school, right? But after high school, we went our separate ways.
Well, we went to two different schools, had just two completely different paths.
It's not like we went far away from home either,
No.
which was kind of funny because, like,
Yep.
I went to Mason,
Right.
which was at the time right down the street from the high school.
And I still lived at home.
I don't, yeah, but I didn't know. Like, I thought he went to Nova. That's where it ends for knowledge. But I,
I think that was the third school I went to, but yeah.
yeah. So I didn't, but you lose track, right? And we're, I've never been huge on social media and stuff, and he really wasn't either at the time.
No.
So like we never like crossed paths, and
And we did it the old-fashioned way. We bumped into each other at a Target.
we did in Chantilly.
6 years
Our-
later.
literally bumped it. Like our carts bumped into each other. It was like, dude. And he was like, dude.
I think there's a word for that.
He was a little more scraggly. Lindsay had longer hair.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
I didn't. I don't think I had a beard back then.
I think you did.
I don't think so. But anyway,
Maybe I was scraggly.
yeah, I think you were.
Yeah, that's probably
Yeah,
me.
shorter hair.
That makes
for
a lot
sure.
more
Oh,
sense.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was cool. It was like that divine intervention, and like so he and I like kind of picked up where we left off, and then the music stuff didn't come for a little bit after that.
No,
Yeah,
not at all.
'cause, but yeah, he was like, "Hey, I'm playing guitar. Do you want to get together and kind of like hang out and do music?" And that's kind of where it all started.
Yeah, it really was after I moved out of the house. And that was probably a year,
Yeah,
Or
it was like
two.
2012, 2013, right in there.
something like that.
Are we just going to brush over completely 69 degrees Celsius?
Yes.
In high school,
This is the
We-
best name
So, of course, we're doing show choir stuff,
Yeah,
right? Which
yeah.
is
What is show choir?
it's the upper echelon, the elite task force of singing.
See, in my school that was called chorale because we were classy.
right? okay.
Chorale?
Yeah.
How do you spell that?
CHOR.
Oh,
Choral.
okay. I got
right.
it.
Yeah, give me a break.
AL.
Yeah.
So
He thought it was like the OK Corral.
Yeah, he was like,
He's like, what road are we going
what
down?
exactly are we talking
The
about?
last time I was on a road in school, it was the Oregon Trail. But I'm going to date myself. Sorry.
Now, did you do Fairfax Choral Society too?
No.
No.
I did not.
Okay.
No.
I did that for a few years in a row.
Yeah.
And so getting into the high school show choir, I already kind of knew the drill.
Yeah.
Because they give you the sheet music. You got to learn how to sing alongside other people. Some of them know how to sing. Some of them don't really know how to sing. But we were typically people that were picked, I guess what that means, show choir for either solos or for smaller projects. Either we had just a natural ear for pitch or our vocals blended well together.
so we were the varsity team, I guess.
We were. I was more the baritone. He was more the tenor. We had a couple other tenors.
10 or 11, yeah.
Yeah, 10 or 11. He's definitely 11.
There it is.
But yeah, so boy bands were, the thing.
Yeah.
In sync, 98 degrees.
Yeah.
And we were trying to come up with something that allowed us to stand apart from all the other goofballs. And we came up with 69 degrees Celsius because...
Why?
They're hotter than 98 degrees.
Oh, there it is.
That's right. And yes, we were. We
Hell
even
yeah,
made
we
our
were.
own T-shirts. So we didn't. We did. We did. But we did. No. Like again, we were on a budget.
Yeah.
So it was
Still on
a
a
plain
budget.
white T-shirt and a Sharpie, and we put our names on the back.
Hey
So-
there, Delilah.
No, this was before that.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
do you think you might still have yours?
I wore it at one of our shows. Remember when we did the 90s show over at Dogfish? I wore it underneath, and I remember at the end I pulled it up. Remember?
That's right.
It doesn't fit. I mean, it's terribly tiny.
It's a souvenir.
But no, it was. Yeah, I still have it. I don't know if I have it anymore after that night. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I still have a ton of stuff over at my parents' house from high school that I'd love to go through, and I probably have my shirt in there somewhere.
But
It's probably pressed, in a glass case, shadow box.
One day when we're famous, it'll go on auction and make a ton of
we
money.
could just get some T-shirts and some Sharpies.
Yeah.
Just like the old days. But what was different was like back then, like it wasn't like the wife beater. It was like you cut off the sleeves, right? And so it was like, yeah. So we took these plain white T-shirts and we just cut the sleeve to the shoulder, right? And we'd
We'd
like,
roll our packs of cigarettes up in the.
Did you cut the sleeves off because your arms were hot?
Yeah, dude.
totally, yeah.
There was a lot of pressure.
We were cool.
Being the diamonds we were.
Yeah.
I just see you guys up there, sleeveless shirts. Man, my biceps are so hot right now.
Raging, sweat dripping everywhere except for our faces.
But it also allowed for us to do our own acts, right? So we got our own parts in each show for us to
we were
do, which was
typically
cool.
consistently in all of the big or bigger productions that they had. Yeah,
Sweet.
Yeah.
That's cool.
yeah. So it was kind of when, even though 6 years had passed and I had just picked up guitar, I knew that there was going to be a synergy there.
Sure.
To start the band, and so if you hadn't picked up guitar, I think I would just be really sad. But yeah, then I mean, going from Northern Virginia's favorite acoustic duo to the favorite acoustic band, I think I responded to a Facebook post that Mike had posted
That's Mike Laveridge. He was a guitar player of Rock Soup. Yep.
that you guys were losing your lead singer. She wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, or she had different priorities going on.
I think she was pregnant, actually. She was pregnant
Was
with
she?
twins. Yeah. And we had a very limited amount of time before she was done with the band.
Oh, so you just telling me that I was like the...
Hey, you're the best thing yet. All right, come on in. All right, he's in.
Exactly. Well, he's better than the last guy.
Desperado.
That's how you got in, because you were better than the last guy.
Right.
I mean,
Well, I remember you guys showed me some clips, or it could have just been pictures. I don't know. And I think you did actually. Somebody shared a clip with me of the girl, because I think you were trying to replace a girl with a girl for the diversity of the band.
I mean, not far off.
Yeah, but no, we I felt like we hit it off when I
Yeah,
came in and tried out with
absolutely.
you guys.
yeah. And, it's funny. it's kind of the same with like American Idol and like The Voice. Like you have people that come out that say, I am a great singer and I can't wait to share my gift with the world. And then you put them in front of musicians and play with them. And it's like, you are actually not a singer.
All you have to
And
do
you
is
have to
walk
be-
down the streets of Nashville,
Yeah.
and you're like, "Oh my god, how did we get as far as we did?"
Yeah. I mean, and then you had being nice about it and being like turning a stranger down. That's tough. Like it's not an easy thing about, replacing band members and stuff. But
No,
Danielle was the singer. That was her name. She had like a really Disney princess type of voice, so she would do really good on like Barracuda. She did Heart really well. And so when you came along, you had the Disney princess voice and the. I remember talking to Mike afterwards, being like, "This if we don't get this guy, he's going to go somewhere else and make us look like idiots."
yeah,
Well, he was already with me.
that was
So it's
already.
not like he was going somewhere else. He was just going to,
See, that was not an understood thing at the time, really.
right, yeah.
I think
He
you
just
didn't-
played himself as a free agent, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, the truth is
that-
coming out.
Is
Thank
that,
God for this podcast.
Well, hold on. Is that why you think Lavrich wasn't too thrilled to know that all of the RadioNV dates took over the Rock Soup dates?
So the big point of contention was, I think, because we had to go through a booking agent and you didn't. We were at the mercy of whatever gigs we could get, and we didn't know ahead of time very often, much more than a month or so ahead of time when we were playing. Whereas you guys had your calendar booked.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I just booked another 10 shows today.
congratulations. So like when we would say, "Hey, we got a gig," and then we'd reach out to you like, "Oh no, we already have a gig that day."
Yep.
And I think that got under Mikey's skin a little bit.
Yeah. No, I get that.
Well, and that's the one thing that Brian and I did a good job early on, and still do, is we built a lot of good relationships. It was just, for us, the promotion was just word of mouth.
Yeah.
So
That's
we
true.
made friends with whoever it was, or we would play a gig at, say, Tin Cannon, and then meet people that owned another restaurant that were like, "Hey, we want you all." And then playing there, it was like, "Hey, we saw you
That
guys
still
at this
happens.
place." And yeah, a lot of our stuff is just word of mouth.
We
10 years
probably
later
had
almost.
the most people come out to see us pre-COVID. I think COVID just kind of crushed it.
Yeah,
And
agreed.
since then, it's been tough to get some people that we really enjoyed seeing at our shows out, to see us at other places.
Yep.
But we still get some good crowds. It's kind of hit or miss. I think the more often it's definitely a hit, because I always end up playing shows with you guys and I'm just always in a great mood.
Oh, yeah.
Don't want to go home.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
want the party to stop.
Yeah. There have been times I've come to the gig absolutely friggin' miserable. And then by the end of the first set, I'm like, this is friggin' awesome. I love doing
Because
this.
we're so good. We're so tight.
Yeah.
And the I think one of those boosters for me is that I know how good we are together,
Yeah.
but then there are some moments where we're just like so crisp,
Yeah.
and it feels so freaking good, and it's like,
Absolutely.
oh my god, like this took me out of my slump from the day, and now
yeah.
I feel amazing.
Yep.
Tequila helps too.
Yeah, that definitely does lubricate things. But I mean, so like I was playing with Rock Soup because their drummer couldn't play anymore, and just so happened to know some people that they got in touch with me, and I started playing with them. And that was probably about a year before you joined.
Mm-hmm.
And then
So you weren't with them long before Brian joined.
no, I
Really?
mean, yeah.
Okay.
I don't mean to speak ill of the previous drummer, but from what I understood, he didn't really take the time to learn the songs the way the drums are played.
Sure.
And I was kind of more of like a play the song how it's supposed to sound kind of a drummer.
Well, that's kind of the shtick of being a cover band,
Yeah.
right? Like Lavrich did a phenomenal job of sticking to a lot of the stuff, that you might hear on a CD or on the radio. He was really good about that. So it would make sense, for others to follow suit,
Yeah. And I never forget the first time Mike Lavey put the guitar behind his back and played. And I was like, man, I'm in a rock band. This is so cool.
Every time he did that, it felt like
Yeah.
it was like, hell yeah.
Yeah, man, that
Like
was
you've been
really
waiting
awesome.
for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where did the name Rock Soup come from?
Yeah, I've always wondered that myself.
Do you know?
No, I'm sure Mike explained it to me. Lavey explained it to me, but I don't really remember. But
Oh, okay.
I think it was one of the situations where you have a couple names and you pick the least worst one, kind of
Yeah.
a thing.
Okay.
and they wanted to convey that they played a whole bunch of different stuff and not
Kind
just
of like an alphabet soup, but
Yeah,
rock
like
and roll
soup to nuts,
kinda
you know,
yeah.
type of
that's
thing.
cool.
The variety of
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always surmised that's what it was, but I don't think I ever really got a straight answer when I asked
Right.
the same question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
Oh, that's okay. And when I joined them, I'd been playing the drums since I was 17, and that was in 1997. And then I played in rock bands, original and cover bands, all through my 20s.
I was going to say, your hero story is pretty awesome
Yeah.
before we finally converged.
Yeah, before the Avengers got together.
Yeah.
yeah. I had my own spin-off series. I played in Philadelphia, a cover band. We did some recording and we did some studio stuff. And there was a band that I played with that was Off the Wagon, is what we called ourselves. And we had a really great party song called "Falling Off the Wagon," and a really great song that was about like Vietnam and fighting in a war. It's called "Wrapped in Golden Chains." If I ever find those copies of those songs, I'll play them for you because they're amazing. They're really amazing.
Is this
songs.
like an Old Crow Medicine Show Ozzy mix of songs?
The lead singer actually
Maybe.
kind of sounded like Brian Johnson from AC/DC.
Oh,
So there's an interesting
nice.
little
Another
parallel.
name I'll never live up to.
Yeah.
Disagree. But so he
You're
had
so
kind of
sweet.
he had like a raspy voice and kind of sang like that. So and it was like the guys that played guitar were really into like the 80s sounding hair metal band. So there was like a lot of wee wee going on. Then I met up with these dudes at a party, and it was like a couple of other bands were there. We were all going to play. So the band's drummer didn't show, and they were like, "Any drummers want to sit in with us?" And I was like, "I'll sit in with you
Is
guys."
there a doctor in the house?
So I sit down with them, and they kind of like before each song, they kind of like, "Okay, we got this part, this part, this part," you know. And so I was like, "Okay," and I did my best, and we played for 45 minutes or so. And at the end, they were like, "We are Plunger," and I was like, "Oh man, I'm in a band called Plunger now."
I gotta go to the
You
bathroom.
put your hand over the mic. You're like, "Hey guys, can we talk about this first?"
And they're like, "No, it's one who plunges, not like a toilet thing." And I was like,
Oh, that makes it
Yeah.
better.
"Yeah,
Right.
Still
okay."
sounds the same.
Yeah.
So they actually were like, "Hey, come play with us too." So I played in both the bands at the same time, you know. And then I moved to Virginia and started playing Rock Soup, and then we met you.
Yeah.
And
I came to, gosh, a good handful.
came
or
to a
so
few of
shows,
them.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
I still
were
remember
fun.
Uptown Alley.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember
And-
that one. They don't do music there anymore. I don't
that was our fault,
Oh.
actually.
Was it really?
Is it?
No way.
We had
But yeah,
such
last
a
time I was
bad
there.
show there. It
We
was
did.
so
There was nobody there.
There was nobody there.
There were like 8 people in this huge space with a
Wow.
professional sound
Been there,
engineer.
done that.
Yeah.
It happens. I mean,
Right.
don't get me wrong. For those that are listening to this,
Right. Yeah. It
sometimes
happens.
we have shows where there is literally nobody there, and we're
Yeah.
playing to the staff and taking requests, and we're looking stuff up just to be like, "Hey, sure, let's give it a try." Remember
Yep.
that song we tried to learn last night? Let's give it a go again today.
Let's do it.
Yeah, but no, that was a bomb, not in a good way show.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And like some of the songs we played in Rock Soup were so much fun to play.
Yeah.
We did that 21 Pilots song.
wish we could turn back time.
Yeah, that
I
one.
loved rapping that.
Yeah, that was good. And then we pulled it off pretty well, I think.
Yeah.
Well, and it was funny because then that turned into, hey, RadioNV should do that song.
Oh, yeah.
And then it was vice versa, right? So like I would come to y'all's shows and be like, oh,
Yeah,
Brian
same.
and I play that song.
Yeah, same.
And then like a couple of
Chicken,
songs later,
egg.
I'd be like, huh. Well, Brian does sound good with them on that one. I wonder if they need a tambourine player. No.
But you know what the
Okay.
difference was?
No, but
Every
it was-
time we sat down and did something acoustic, again, going
Yeah.
back to what we were saying earlier, it was always our take or a different. And playing with the band, you got to sound as close as you can to the original, right?
Right.
And the one thing that Courtney just asked me this the other day, we were just having a conversation about the difference between, you know, the bands and playing acoustic and singing at the same time, or primarily for our sets, is one thing. And then the other side of it is being the frontman of a cover band where you only play guitar on like 2 or 3 songs. And then the rest of the time you got to figure out
What to do with
what
your
your
hands.
stage presence is.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with my hands.
Exactly.
So
That's
yeah,
so
in
funny.
those instances, it's different when Labby plays it versus when when we would play a song.
But it was cool. Like I never saw it in a bad light. It was just different, and it was like, oh, that's cool. But like, you guys definitely had the rock band vibe. You know, it was cool. It was a fun show. Like people got into it. You know what I mean? And I know from experience that's a rush. Like that is so cool to have people like. You guys had a Red Rock show where it was probably the
place
most
was on
packed
fire.
I've ever seen it.
It was an amazing show. Oh my
Like
God,
that
was amazing.
show was like ridiculous.
That was
and
fun,
I
that
was
show.
like, holy
we used to
crap.
do the Maroon 5 Sugar.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
The Darkness. We did the Darkness.
Yep.
Yes, that was
Darkness is
Brian's
so
favorite.
good.
Yeah.
And he still does that
I-
at karaoke.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't. I'll never get enough of that song because there are very few people that could pull that off. And I always love going up there.
Yeah. Like, look
Doing
at you
that
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But we had a ton of great songs.
Yeah, we did. 3
We had
hours worth.
STP. I know.
And you guys had the in-ear
Yeah,
too
we did.
stuff.
We
and I
were
was like,
so
man, that's
profesh.
so cool.
That was a good
like-
gig.
So professional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when you go to take your break, you like flip the in-ear out. You're like,
Sometimes he
let's get a
had to.
beer.
Yeah.
Sometimes he had to. Sometimes both in is just too much.
Right. But no, that was cool. You guys were fun. You know, that's why I kept coming out. It was just a fun show to go and watch. But, you know, when things kind of fell apart there, I mean, Brian and I were like, hey, we need to kind of expand this a little bit. Like, we need to add at least a piece for us to play some of the bigger spots that we wanted to play.
Funny enough, some of the places that we had played or had gone to do open mic, at least one of my missions was I was trying to find us an acoustic bass guitar player.
Yeah.
And I saw this dude that was amazing, and I was desperately trying to get him to just, hear our materials so that he could, get a better sense of what we were aiming for. And there were a couple other people that I talked to. But then we were brainstorming,
Yeah.
trying to think of, again, like how
During
to
a practice.
how to
We're like-
enhance it. And then we were like, I wonder what Bacon's up to.
I said, have you talked
Still
to
got his
Bacon?
number?
What's he
Yeah.
doing? And Brian's like, I don't know. I'll reach out to him.
Yeah.
And at that time, I had not been in Rock Soup for, I don't know, probably about a year. And I was still thankful for my weekends that I got back and not having to lug my drum set around God's creation in a Kia.
That's the
And-
one thing with the drummer. Now, if the way that we were structured, Lavrich basically had all the sound equipment.
Yeah, and he drove a Honda Civic. So,
Yeah.
like,
That
that
never
made
made
lots
sense
of
to me.
sense.
So he definitely got the short end of the stick on that one. But as a drummer, like, it doesn't matter. You always have to bring your equipment, regardless of who's responsible for sound.
So when would you show up to the shows, Brian?
This
Is that a good question? Is
That's-
that tough? Sorry.
That's not a tough question. I can answer it.
He was the lead singer that would just
So you know the
show in,
memes
like-
that they make?
Yeah, have you seen the reels
Where
on
it's
Instagram
like the
and TikTok?
drummers wheeling in all these carts of cases of stuff, and the lead guitarist has like 4 stacks of guitar cases pushing in, and the bass player just kind of saunters in, but he's got some gear, and the singer's like, I didn't do shit.
Yeah. So 5 minutes before we go on, Brian rolls in. And,
Oh,
no, just
come
kidding.
on.
Plug in,
That's not
tune
true.
up.
Yeah, that's not true.
I
know
only
what
need this
happens?
guitar for 3 songs anyway. I've got my jazz
You know
hands
what's
ready
really
to sing
happened?
along.
Early on, I used to show up early,
Mm-hmm.
and Lavrich was so particular about how everything needed to be set up.
Oh, okay.
It was like,
So Bacon and I have no idea what that's like. Okay.
but I don't get mad
Right,
for
yeah.
anything. I just give you crap
sure.
about it.
Of course.
But he would get upset. He would get upset. So I was like, all right, I won't touch your stuff.
Because I mean, this guy we're talking about, like bass speakers the size of this table.
Oh, yeah.
and like big
Yeah.
speakers.
No,
and
they
like
were
lights
massive.
that would go up in the air.
It was a show.
It was crazy.
Yeah. They were sound sensitive lights. He had a pedal that he could adjust the settings to it, based on what color scheme he wanted, how quickly, whatever. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff involved.
And then when the gig was over, we'd pack all the stuff into his Honda Civic. And
Jesus.
I don't know how.
Now,
he did
for
it.
that, I did stay.
Yeah.
For that, I did stay
yeah.
because
Oh,
that
yeah.
makes more sense.
Yeah.
But it started with me showing up an hour before the start time to help, to 45 minutes to half an hour. Because it was like, if I'm literally sitting there doing nothing and I'm just getting wasted before a performance.
Yeah, and paying a babysitter.
And
probably,
paying
too.
the babysitter.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
the other piece of it. So, but no, I definitely stayed at the end and helped,
Oh, yeah.
roll stuff out to the cars and stuff like that. Yeah. So but I know that was a point of contention. It is what it is. It's the past.
Bygones are bygones. I mean,
Yeah.
Well, it's history. That's what we're, kind of
That's
pulling
what we're
together.
here.
So let's go back even further for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because when I was a kid, like a teenager, my sister married a musician who was like a lead guitar player in a whole bunch of cover bands. Some of the cover bands are still around that he was a guitar player in. And after like years of doing the big band thing, he went and decided to do a small acoustic trio thing. And they called themselves Acoustic Sauce. And
Okay.
they had a guitar player, and my sister sang with them, and they had a guy on congas, 2 congas in the back. And that, when you guys asked me to come play with you, I was like, this could be my own acoustic sauce. And like, it was really helpful that I already knew a majority of the songs you guys were playing because I knew them
From Rock Soup.
So all I had to really do, was learn how to play the congas in a way that made sense, with what you guys were doing. So there was one guy that came up to me after we were done playing, and he was like, this is when I started playing with the tuba, the big one on the floor.
Yeah.
And he came over, he's like, I heard you playing from the street, and I knew that you were playing with congas. I said, I play congas. And he was like, let me show you something. And he put his elbow in the middle of it.
Is that where that came
That's
from?
where that came from.
Oh,
he
my
put his
God.
elbow in the middle of it and pushed down and started hitting it. And as he lifted his elbow, it changed the tone of the head. And I was like, that is brilliant.
Yeah.
I could end songs with that. And so ever since then, I throw it in there every once in a while.
Yeah, because Brian loves that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
last
looks
time-
back at me and he's like, would you just end the song already?
Last time you put your whole body on it, and then you were like, I was like, wow, we're getting elaborate now. Boom, 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 boom. I love that you're incorporating those new things because it's great when I turn around and I'm like, what in the hell is he doing?
Yeah.
But it does. It adds more showmanship, more flair to the whole experience.
I mean, you yourself add so much to what we have as a product, right? And I mean, there's so many times Brian and I are like, damn, that was so good with bacon.
Yeah.
Like, it was such an amazing idea for us to bring you on board because we've gone so much further now than we ever could have gone. And we miss you when you're not there.
Aw.
Like, he and I would play, and it's like,
There's nobody to look back and wink at.
we would look back. Yeah.
There's nobody.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if I'm on beat. Nope, Bacon's not there. All right, I'll just look at Brian and we'll just head nod to each other. It just
It feels like the
sounds
family's
good, sounds
together.
good.
You
Yeah,
know,
it does.
when you are there.
Yeah.
And then when you're not there, Tim's like, well, just like old times, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm like, do you want me to play the bongos? And Brian's like, no, just stick to the tambourine. I'm like, it's because I'm not as good as Bacon. He's like,
Oh,
well, I'm
not
like, I
true.
knew it.
Nonsense.
Tim,
okay.
I know you still got it in you.
Wow. Every once in a while.
So
The Congo Bongo face off, which
The battle.
it's fun. The battle is fun. I have to step up my game for that. I got to come up with something.
You got to spin it 3 times now.
Yeah. Wow.
it has been 2 or 3 years now that we've been doing it.
Yeah.
And it's been pretty much the same the entire time.
Maybe you know what we could do? Oh, it just struck me like lightning. So you know how you have your congas and then you've got your little splash cymbal? Tim, we got to get for your bongos, we got to get you a
A
little
miniature splash cymbal.
Oh, they make those.
Yeah, I know
You could
they
just
do.
take one of your old tambourines and
why
just
you
take
have to
the
do
take the
Oh,
round
yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I could do that.
Or you know what we could do? We could get you those sticks. Weren't you just talking about them before we got started? About the drumsticks that make the out of the speaker?
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll get you one of those things. And then you could just play, forget the bongos, just play the drumsticks with the little speaker. We'll attach it to the mixer.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
One of the best things about that is sometimes you would come around, you turn around and hit my cymbal, and
Yeah.
if I'm quick enough, I can grab it and muffle it before you hit it. Ah, those are great times.
Well,
I love
and
it when
what's
that
great
happens.
is just like everything else that we do, it gets a reaction.
Yeah.
Right? Whether it's playing the kazoo, doing rap in Baby Got Back, or like just throwing curveballs at people, like
crowd
just
reactions.
getting their reactions. But like because I'll make a face when I hit it and you don't get it, and I look back at people and people are like, oh, did he just, piss off Bacon for hitting his stuff or what? Like, it gets people's reaction. And in the same sense, like when you grab it, people are like, oh, he got timid. So it's just fun to it's all part of the entertainment that we provide and to get people's reactions. I mean, because, people have asked me like, why do you guys play kazoo? And I'm like, did it get your attention? And they're like, well, yeah. And I'm like, that's
There you
why.
go. Yep.
And that's the whole point.
I played a solo show 2 nights ago where there was a whole group of people that had never seen me perform before. And I pulled out the kazoo and started playing Aha. And they turned over and looked at me and it's like, what?
Yeah.
Like, who does that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, yeah.
Exactly.
You want to hear 2 more songs where I do this?
Right.
It's awesome.
They're like, oh, brother. And it's like, yes.
That's right. I did, oh, brother. Yeah.
All right, so at this point in the show's ended. Tim has lost interest. I'll say, okay, well, Brian, why don't you read us out? And Brian would say,
all right, let me look at it real quick.
yeah, take your time.
Podcast Envy is a Bacon Wave podcast production in association with Revelry Media Productions. This episode was superbly engineered by Michael Bacon and produced by Brian, Timmy C, and Bacon of RadioNV. If you enjoyed Podcast Envy, please share it with your family, friends, and enemies by sharing our content on social media. Contact us at contact@baconwaveproductions.com. We'll see you next time, boy.